In this episode, I am going to share with you content that people have paid thousands of dollars to receive in an in-person workshop called Building an Online Business. It is information that I want to get out to even more people, and it has everything to do with those who have said, Cliff, I want to create some sort of online business. I want to build something that will allow me to ultimately leave my day job. I want to kind of do what you've done, and I'd like to start a podcast like you did to make that happen. The only problem is that is exactly how I started. With everything that has come about as far as my entrepreneurial journey, I started with launching a podcast. However, building a brand as the podcast answer man during the first decade of my entrepreneurial journey, helping more than 40,000 people around the world launch their podcast, I recognized that most of those people wanted to actually create an online business and were failing miserably, giving it up, packing it in, calling it quits. They're just like, this isn't for me. I don't know what it is, but it's just not working. And that, my friend, is because they started with step number 8 in what I have determined is an 11-step formula on how I would recommend you build your online business.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you the full 11-step formula that I would recommend if you were thinking about creating an online business. And more than anything, I want to share this with you because I think far too many people think that all you need to do is choose my niche topic, go out, build a large audience, create a lot of content, gain their trust and likability and rapport with this audience, and eventually I can start making offers. And, well, through all of that time, effort, and energy, I should be able to make a living doing whatever it is I want to do for a living. Well, let me just tell you this. My story is I started out with a podcast. Now, frankly, I was not looking to make money or start a business when I started a podcast. I was doing it as a hobby. It was something for fun. But over time, I discovered, I think I would like to explore what life might look like if creating content that was entertaining people around the world, that was providing value through educational content, that consistently provided hope and encouragement, and that motivated and inspired people to do things in their life to make it more fulfilling, more enjoyable, more rewarding, more exciting, more positive. I wonder what life would be like if I could do more of that with my voice spoken into a microphone. And ultimately, one day, I did have a desire to start a business. That all came about after a year of podcasting as a hobby, just playing around, following my passion, following my energy. Now, because I started with creating content, because I started with building an audience, because I started by providing tons and tons and tons of free resources, I skipped out on some of the things that I now know could have helped me find profitability in my business pursuits much faster than what I actually experienced. For those of you who don't know the early part of my journey, I podcasted as a hobby going all the way back to December 2005. after my first year of podcasting, and I had created a lot of content in that first year because it was a passion. It was I was absolutely overwhelmed with just the possibilities of my voice, and not just my voice, but my wife and I and several of my friends. We were creating all of these different podcasts, putting out about 7 to 15 podcast episodes a week after 1 year of starting my podcasting journey. And then thinking, I wonder what life would be like if I could do this for a living. And then started to think about that. What would that look like? And had conversations, and people told me all the different things that I could do. And I must say, because I already had content, because I already had a significant audience that knew who I was, I will tell you that was a bit of a hindrance to me when it came to trying to turn on the spigot of income generation. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't regret my own journey, but I will say that I had podcasted for 2 years as a hobby, as a little side thing, and aggressively looking to build some profitability into my online content creation efforts after that first year. So for about a year, trying to create something that would give me the confidence to make the leap from the day job. Something where, I think I could do this. I think I could provide for my family. And after 2 years, I was generating about $3,000 to $5,000 a month. That was outside of the day job. And I had this idea that, gosh, if I could make $3,000 to $5,000 each month relatively consistently, if I could do that in my free time, what if I gave the primary Monday through Friday 9 to 5, what if I gave those primary energy creating hours over to this project? Obviously, I would make more, or so I thought. The thing is, though, is I was trying to build monetization streams of income around the audiences that I had built, and quite frankly, I didn't build those audiences and decide what content to create with any sort of business monetization in mind. There was no business model in mind for any of those things, with the exception of one, and that was Podcast Answer Man. I did start Podcast Answer Man with episode number 1, still not actually convinced that I could ever make a living doing my own business out in this podcast content creating world. But I launched episode number 1 of Podcast Answer Man, which, by the way, the Cliff Ravenscraft show, the first 500 or so episodes were Podcast Answer Man. I rebranded that show to what you're listening to now, the Cliff Ravenscraft show. So this very podcast started with episode number 1, and I said, hey, my name's Cliff Ravenscraft. I've been podcasting for quite some time now. I'm absolutely loving what is possible. A lot of people are asking me questions. And so here I am. I'm launching a podcast called Podcast Answer Man. Not because I believe that I have all the answers to podcasting, but I can tell you this. I am so passionate about it that if you have a question, I know how to go and find the answer. So submit all your questions to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll do the research. That's what this show is all about. And by the way, I know this sounds crazy. I have a great lucrative day job, work in a family-run business owned by my mom and dad, started by my grandfather in 1937. I'm next in line to take the business over. But I must admit, I sometimes wonder what life would look like if maybe just out of some crazy dream become reality, I might maybe in 3 to 5 years from now actually be able to make a full-time living as a podcast consultant. Well, lo and behold, it only took 1 year, but that was how I started this podcast. All of the other monetization of all the other content that I was creating, it's not that there wasn't money there just wasn't enough for me to provide for a family of 5. At the time, I'm the sole income earner for our family. And at the time, I had 3 young kids. with my wife taking care of them, and here we are trying to make ends meet, and all of the stuff that we do. And financially, I'm thinking about leaving the most secure, successful career that I could possibly imagine, kind of just left right there in my lap. It was handed to me from my parents, and I'm next in line to take it over. Albeit, okay, so not fully fulfilling now that I've been podcasting, and I see that there's something else bigger out there that I feel called to do, to be in this world, that the ways that I could show up and serve and encourage and equip. And this podcasting thing seems so much more than what I'm able to do as an insurance agent. And so I'm like, I've got to figure this out. Now, for me, I did end up leaving the career as an insurance agent after 2 years as doing this as a hobby. And in January 2008, I was full-time self-employed. Now, granted, because of all the things that I did, all of the hours I put in, all of the things that I've tested and that worked, trust me, there was a lot of things I threw against the wall that did not stick. A lot of things. But the things that did stick allowed me to have what we call profitability in the first year of my business. That means that the business paid for all of its own overhead. That means that the expenses in the business were the expenses were less than the income that was generated in the business. And those expenses were things like healthcare, provided from the employer, or AKA my business, for me and my family. That was essential. It was for professional fees for people like a CPA to handle taxes and accounting and bookkeeping and all this other stuff that I know nothing about. I hired that out first thing. And then beyond that, there was the equipment, there was the technology, server costs, all these other little miscellaneous softwares and things of that nature. All of those expenses were paid. And I got a special discount when it came to payroll. And when I say a special discount, I just chose to relieve my business of the responsibility of paying me a paycheck for the first 9 months of the year. What I'm saying is that the business did not pay me a single penny as far as income. The business was receiving income, but it was not going to me in payroll. It was just covering its own expenses. By the end of my first year in business, the final 3 months of that first year, I did pay myself a paycheck each of those 3 months. However, after taxes, my total net income was only $11,000. Now, I attribute a lot of those things to my limited mindset at the time. I had a lot of messed up beliefs about adding value to others and earning money and how much money one should earn, about how hard and difficult you must work to earn money, no pain, no gain. I mean, I just had so many different messed up mindset related things related to money that certainly I attribute a lot of my struggle financially to my mindset. Yet I will also tell you that so much of the struggle happened because I started my business with step number 8 in what I have developed over the years as an 11-step formula for building an online business. You see, as the podcast answer man, I had lots of people saying, Cliff, I'm ready to take your podcasting A to Z course. Here's my $2,000. And I'm like, at the end of this course, you are going to have an amazing sounding podcast. Does not matter what your technical skill level is. By the end of our 4 weeks in this course, you will have successfully set up your equipment. You will have successfully configured it to record your voice. You will have successfully learned how to edit your wave recording in such a fashion that it sounds beautiful as far as sound quality goes. You'll know how to export that as an MP3 file. You'll know how to set up your podcast media host through something like Libsyn or whatever. You'll know how to publish that to the internet, and you will know how to take that podcast feed and submit it to the podcast directories, and you will know how to, from that point forward, go through a step-by-step process to create new episodes that will automatically be delivered to your audience. By the end of the 4 weeks, right here, right now, at the beginning of the 4 weeks, you don't have a podcast, and you don't even know what you don't know about what's needed to have a podcast. But in the end of our 4 weeks together, you will have a podcast. Now, I had over 800 students pay me $2,000 to go through that course called Podcasting A to Z. And what I will tell you is that a majority of those people over all of those years, when I asked them, why do you want to create a podcast? I want to be able to create some sort of additional revenue stream for my family. I want to be able to leave my day job and do this thing I feel most called to do. I want to stand out as an authority or a thought leader in this particular area. And when I began to ask them questions, I'm like, okay, well, tell me, what is your niche? Tell me a little bit about your target audience. What are their struggles? What experience do you have in all these other things? And they're like, Cliff, that's why I'm hoping you're going to help me. I can't quite, for the life of me, think of where I add value to anyone. I was hoping you could help me pick out my niche. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, well, sure, I can help you with that. Now, again, the emphasis of this 4-week Podcasting A to Z course was, let me help you go from not knowing how to have a podcast to actually having a great sounding podcast that you have already published your first or several episodes to, and you now know how to do it with efficiency. That's what my course was designed to do. My course was not designed to teach you how to go out and become a thought leader. It wasn't designed to teach you how to monetize an additional stream of income for your family outside of and on top of your day job, how to become a thought leader. Now, certainly, there are some aspects of the course and conversations where I certainly answered questions related to that, shared a lot of my experience, also shared what I'd learned from others who had done this successfully, and what I've experienced in my own mastermind conversations. So I had a lot of value to add in those particular discussions, but there was one student who came through Podcasting A to Z, and I love to tell this story. It was... He's like, Cliff, I wonder if I should create a podcast around small business accounting practices, because I have a lot of experience in that. That's what I've been doing for the last 35 years of my life. And I know that there's a lot of small businesses out there that don't really understand how accounting and bookkeeping and all these other things work. And I think I could add a lot of value there. Just a little side note, I absolutely hate my day job. I'm bored to tears when I talk about those things, and quite frankly, I want to leave that world behind. Okay, option number 2 for a podcast for me, all about mountain biking. And he's like, I love to go mountain biking, and I don't know if you're familiar with mountain biking, but there's just this thrill of all this other stuff. And then he's like, there's a third passion that I have, and it's called wooden boots. And I'm like, what? Wooden boots. By the way, I should mention to you that I was doing this Podcasting A to Z course at the time, and all of these questions are submitted in an online discussion forum. And this question was submitted to me in written form. I go out to lunch for my break that day. I'll never forget where I was in line. I'm standing there at Chipotle waiting to order my Chipotle order. And I read this on my phone. Bookkeeping, small business, accounting practices. I'm bored to tears. I hope I never have to do this again. That's why I want to launch this podcast. That's option A. Option B, mountain biking. Okay. And then I read option C, wooden boots. And I'm like, wooden boots? What well, one thing is for sure, wooden boots. I would imagine there's not a lot of competition in the space. I don't know how big of an audience there would be for wooden boots. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the only thing I can think of is these Dutch wooden shoes that I've seen throughout my lifetime. And even then, I can't imagine that does he really have a passion for wooden boots? Well, I got up to order my order at Chipotle, sat down and ate my lunch. And when I got back, I was probably going to recommend that he go into something a little bit more along the lines of mountain biking, given the fact that he absolutely is bored to tears about the business accounting and bookkeeping side of things. And I just didn't think wooden boots was going to gain a lot of traction unless there's something more that he wanted to tell me about it. And so I was prepared that afternoon after I got home from lunch to sit down and recommend that, here are my thoughts given the three options and all the description that you get. And here's why you may want to consider the wooden boots, the mountain biking. And here's why you might still want to consider the potential of doing something with business accounting. And as I was getting ready to write all of that, I looked again and I noticed it did not say wooden boots. That was just my eyes playing a trick on me when I was standing in line looking at this on my iPhone. Instead, it said wooden boats, not boots, but boats. And then I did some online research for wooden boats, and there are wooden boats enthusiasts all around the world. And the story goes that I had recommended, gosh, if you're really that passionate about wooden boats, I would, out of all the topics, I think you could really carve a niche for yourself in wooden boats. But this is the whole thing. This is a guy who's already paid $2,000. He's already invested. I want to launch this podcast. I'm hiring you to help me with all of the technical aspects and hurdles and obstacles that stand in the way of me publishing my episodes. So by the end of the 4 weeks, there's a podcast. And it was a successful podcast that was produced for many years, but not one that actually led to significant revenue. And there was a reason for that. It's because it started with a great topic, a niche audience, and no thought whatsoever to the business model. And this story, by the way, happened over and over again. Now, because of who I am, I like the idea. I can come up with all sorts of ideas for business strategies about how I could earn income doing something that is a passion. And in fact, I gave this individual a perfect idea of how he could make $30,000 in one weekend, at least once a quarter, if not every single month. And this is a proven model that I've seen work over and over again. In fact, I'll even tell you what it was if you're interested. So this individual would go and find somebody who is a wooden boat enthusiast. And these people tend to have massive workshops, like wood workshops. We're talking major sized wooden barns or whatever the case may be. And they have so many tools. And we're talking they have probably over $100,000, maybe $300,000, $400,000 worth of tools and equipment. And they literally have massive boats that they have built and crafted by hand. And there are so many people out there who are on the earlier part of the journey of getting into this particular niche or this industry, this passion for wooden boats. And he had developed an audience of wooden boat enthusiasts. One of the things that this gentleman did was he created content where he would go and visit these people in person in their place and record incredible sound interviews, and you would hear the sound of the woodworking equipment in the background as things were being made and stuff like that. But then there would be this interview, and this person, this client of mine at the time, he was an incredible photographer. So he would take all of these stunning photos of their workshop and of the boats that they had made by hand. And then every single podcast episode would be this incredible blog post that had the podcast episode, had the interview, and had all of these photos and a written description and all of this stuff. And it's like, he had a loyal, amazing, targeted niche audience. And my recommendation is at least once a quarter, you could host a kind of a workshop weekend. You could even do it like father-son weekend or whatever. And so you get these people who are out there who are enthusiasts about this, but they don't have their own space. They don't have their own, they've not actually built an entire boat. Maybe they've, made a canoe or a rowboat or something like that. But man, to see one of these big sailboats that somebody has made and all this other stuff, and to acquire and learn skills from somebody who's been doing this for the last 60 years of their life, in their workshop, in their space, you could partner with some of these people that you've interviewed. They've got big enough space where you could bring 15, 20, 30 people, and they could teach a workshop, and the people there could ask questions and have hand-on experience, and you could charge anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 and per person, or per father-son or whatever, and you could split the revenue 50-50, 60-40, whatever. There's lots of ways that you could monetize this. And I gave this idea, and unfortunately, that did not sit well with the mindset of this particular individual. So ultimately, that podcast was just what one might call a labor of love. And it continued on for many years. And that podcast today, not available. In fact, the domain for that particular show, that WordPress instance with all of the archives of everything that was ever put into that, and that podcast went for many years. If I had to guess, it was probably between 7 to 10 years. And there's no access to any of that content today. And I do know that particular podcast, that particular brand, one of the desires was to find some way to monetize it. And while, yes, that podcast did earn enough from some affiliate things here and some sponsorships there and just maybe a Patreon thing here or something like it back in the day, while it did earn enough to cover the cost of hosting the podcast, it certainly didn't cover the amount of time, effort, and energy creating the content, spending the time traveling to the people and taking those photos and putting into it. And it was simply not sustainable. Now, this is no commentary on that particular brand. It is just an backstory to help you understand why eventually, after more than a decade teaching many thousands, tens of thousands of people how to launch a podcast through, not just through my podcasting A to Z course, but through my free online courses and everything else, I finally realized is like, wait a second, what value most comes from my experience is not just the technical, how do I launch a podcast? While yes, I'm an incredibly gifted teacher and I have a great method for helping you understand these complex technical things, in reality, there's a lot of people who could help you with that. And what I think would be far more valuable is if I could help you start from a better position on your desire to build some sort of additional income stream. I would love to help capture you before you go start creating a podcast, a blog, a website, designing a logo, ordering business cards, or any of those other things. Step 8, create content. My thought was, what would happen if I could help you through a step-by-step sequential process of what I would recommend that needs to be done to not guarantee you success. I'm not one of those online course creators or workshop leaders or anything like that, but that will at least cover the main basis of what needs to happen for you to truly have the greatest opportunity to succeed in online business, or to become a thought leader, or to create something in a niche where you rise to the top, where you are able to earn income from multiple streams of income, and where there's a business model that is sustainable, that will provide income, whether it's a side hustle that you plan to keep on top of your day job, or whether it's something that you want to build and grow to such a level that one day it will earn enough income where you feel confident that it could and has promise of replacing your day job. So one of the things that I began doing was coaching individuals one-on-one. I began evaluating where people were getting stuck, what was getting missed along the way, and all of the things that I've learned from my working in my own business pursuits, my own entrepreneurial journey, starting with step number 8, create content, and what I've seen with everyone else that I'd worked with who had succeeded. Now, my 11-step formula for building an online business is not unique, and it's not so ultimately different from others. It's an amalgamation of things I've learned from a lot of other people who have shared their formulas, their frameworks. But these are uniquely mine in that this is the order that I put them in, and this is the way that I teach it. Now, I am going to attempt in the next 26 minutes to share with you my 11-step formula. It is going to be an abbreviated version of it for sure. I did this as a day-and-a-half workshop where this was like a 2-hour session in the workshop, or at least an hour, probably somewhere between an hour to 2 hours. But anyway, I'm going to share with you this 11-step formula. I'm going to put the 11 steps in the show notes as well. I want you to have this if you have a desire to create some sort of online business, some sort of side hustle, some sort of thought leadership. And if you think that you're going to do that because you have a podcast and you have an audience, you might be interested to find out that it'll make a lot of sense that for many people who hired me in helping them take their podcasting efforts to the next level in profitability and creating an online business, the most common piece of feedback that I had given to those clients was, I think it's time for you to shut down that podcast, or I think it's time for you to rebrand the show and delete all the archives, all of the old episodes out of the archives. Let's relaunch this under a new brand. There's so many times that was the recommended stance. Now, some people were not ready to hear that, but it is necessary, I think, in many cases, if you want to get to profitability and a sustainable, consistent revenue stream ongoing. All right, let's just jump into it. Are you ready? Step number 1, determine your destination. You want to start with the end in mind. The first question I would write down on a piece of paper under step number 1, what do I want my life to look like? What benefits do I want to experience from the work that I do? So, for example, one of the things that I would write down is exactly how much money must my business generate within how many hours each week? That would be the first thing I would write down. What do I want my life to look like? What kind of benefits do I want my work that I do, the time, effort, and energy I put into this, what are the benefits I want it to look like? And by the way, here's the number of hours I want to work each week. And those the hours invested there each week must generate how much money. Now, I got to tell you that there are a number of people say, okay, Cliff, that's not a problem for me. Here's the situation. I want to work no more than 20 hours a week, and I want it to generate $27,000 a month. And I'm like, okay, great. I think that's wonderful. How much are you currently generating right now? Oh, 0. Okay. Tell me about your years of experience and what knowledge you bring to the table. Oh, this is a brand new interest of mine. Oh, okay. Okay. How much do you make in your day job right now? Oh, I make about $47,000. And I was like, okay, whoa, there's a lot there. So while I never discourage anyone from dreaming big dreams, what I will say is I see a lot of people who determine what they want the destination to look like, and the expectations are somewhat skewed into the stratospheric side of things, if you know what I'm saying. You might want to have a conversation with somebody who has seen some of the examples of what's possible in all of these various different places. And so I would begin a little bit of research to find out what has already been done. Can I get a little feel for what others have been able to accomplish to see what it is that I can reasonably expect as far as number of hours invested versus the amount of income generated, and also what's the time frame before that takes place. Now, I can tell you right now, I'm in a place right at this point in my entrepreneurial journey. I could easily generate somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 a month consistently, and not really have to ever do much more than 12 to 15 hours per week, and that's all my scheduled activity working and delivering value to clients. That's not to say that I don't do more in my business. I do. The thing is the things that I do when I'm not working directly with my clients, though the things that I do in my free time are what exponentially increase the amount of value that people get when they do have access to my time and attention in the environments that I create, whether that be through group coaching programs, mastermind group meetings, and live workshops or one-on-one sessions with me. But what I will say is that while I'm able to achieve that, I wouldn't have been able to do that in the first 6 months or 9 months or even the first year of my business. I will say that it wouldn't take me as long as it took me to get there, knowing what I know now, and so I'm able to help there. But still, the important thing is you want to start with the end in mind. You do want to have a picture of what you want your life to look like. You want to know what benefits you want to receive from this, and you do want to set some sort of standard. I want to earn at least this much money working no more than this many hours per week. Now, again, what your numbers are as far as hours invested each week and how much income your business must generate per month, that varies greatly from person to person when it comes to what is a realistic expectation within what time frame for that to become a reality. But what I will say, very few people I've ever coached actually have the answers to any of these questions when I start working with them. So step number 1 is to determine your destination, all of those things. All right, the second step is to identify where you already add value. What I mean by this is if you were to look into your email inbox, or if you were to evaluate people coming up to you in person, are there any areas where people are already seeking your advice? Are there things that other people have noticed about you and what you do where they're consistently tapping in? It's like, hey, because you are fill in the blank, or because you do fill in the blank, I thought you'd be the perfect person to give me some advice on this decision that I'm facing. And so what are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your passions? What are your areas of expertise? And what is your experience? One of the things that I encourage you to do is create what I call an inventory of value. And this is just a simple document. You can write it down on a legal sheet of paper if you want, or open a Word document or a Google document or a Notion or Evernote document, and just title it, label it, inventory of value, and then answer the question, what do I bring to the table? List down all of the education that you've invested in. List down all the books that you've read that have been meaningful and impactful, the things that really gave you insights that help bring about transformation. Write down the investments you've made in coaching and all the other things that have added to your educational experiences, the conferences you've attended, the courses you've invested in. Then write down your experiences. Write down some of the things that you've tried that have failed miserably, and even better if it's public failure where people saw you fall flat on your face. And for each of those experiences, write down a bullet point list of all the things you learned, the things that you know to avoid in the future. That's valuable experience. And yes, you can write down all of the experiences of the goals you set that you eventually achieved. And write down the things that bullet point list of items of what you learned about what brought about that success and how you got there. Those are incredibly valuable as well. But anyway, I could go on and on. There's an entire thing I could share with you about how to create your inventory of value. But you want to find out what it is where you're already adding value to others, what it is that you have in the archives of your subconscious mind that could be instantly pulled from to deliver value to others. In fact, one of the ways that you could find a shortcut to finding some of these answers, although I never suggest that you rely on this tool as your go-to only source for creating your inventory of value. In fact, I would encourage you to use the tool. By the way, the tool is called the 6-question survey. There are 6 questions that literally could change your life if you were to use these 6 questions in the way that I'm about ready to suggest. But anyway, what you want to do is take 10 or 15 people that know you at some sort of professional level. And if you don't have a professional level experience with 10 or 15 people, then certainly find some friends and people that you know that would be willing to do this for you. It's important that you get about 10 or 15 people that you could send this to, and anticipate that if you send it to 10 or 15 people, about 3 to 5 and maybe 6 or 7 people will respond. But here's the 6-question survey. You're simply going to send them an email or whatever way you deliver this to them. And the subject line is, "Can you do me a favor?" And then you say nothing more than, "Hey, I was wondering if you could take just a few minutes to answer each of the 6 questions below and hit reply with your responses." Don't explain anything about what this is about. You don't interpret any of these questions. It is essential that they interpret it for themselves, what each question means, and that's all you're going to do. Here are the 6 questions. Question number 1, what are my 3 to 5 unique qualities? Question number 2, what value do you get from connecting with me? Question number 3, what do you think is my professional strength? Question number 4, what do you think is my personal strength? Question number 5, what attribute is unique to me and separates me from others? Question number 6, what is one quality that I seem to undervalue that you think I should be more bold about sharing? Now, send those 6 questions in an email with what I just said earlier to 10 or 15 people. Do not start reading those responses until you have invested at least 30 minutes to an hour in putting your own inventory of value together. Once you've got at least 30 minutes to an hour invested in coming up with on your own what you believe you have of value to add to others, then that's when you would start looking at these results and start adding that to the list of what other people are acknowledging. This is where I get value from connecting with you, from having you in my life. This is where I see so much of what you bring to the table, and it's why I love hanging out with you. It's why I come to you for advice. There's so much you're going to get out of those 6-question responses. All right, another thing that you could do, and this would require reading a book if you haven't read it already. It's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And I would encourage you reading up about what's called your zone of genius and see if you can't find the 4 questions in there that will help you ask yourself, what is my zone of genius? Now, I did a lot of content back in the day on The Big Leap in this podcast. In fact, what is this? This is episode number 741. If you go all the way back into the archives of this podcast and look for episode number 519 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, there's an entire episode about how to discover your zone of genius. Go check that out. All right, so step number 2 was to identify where you already add value to others. So now we're going to move on to step number 3. You know what your business is going to deliver as far as benefits to you. You know how many hours you're willing to invest. You know how much money you've decided your business must generate to reach the financial goals that you want it to reach. So now what you want to do, step number 3, determine your ideal customer. Now, in my old podcast Answer Man days and podcast consulting days, we would call this your target audience. But I don't like to call it your target audience because audience implies in some ways that there's this large number of people out there who are just listening and consuming content. And while that's great to have an audience, the important thing is to understand who in that audience is your ideal customer. That's what you want to determine. And there are 5 key ingredients for an ideal customer. These all must be met if you truly want to have the greatest possibility of sustainable profitability in your business. Here are the 5 ingredients. Number 1, people with money. All right. Number 2, those people must have a problem. So it's people with money who have a problem. Okay, now here's the thing. There's lots of people out there who have money and they have problems. But the thing is they, number 3, must be willing to pay to have that problem solved. All right. Number 4, you have to have the ability to solve that problem for them. And number 5, while this isn't absolutely required, it is certainly recommended if you would like your work to feel fulfilling. You must want to solve it. So those are the 5 ingredients. Identify people with money who have a problem that they are willing to pay to have solved, that you can solve, and you desire to solve for them. That, my friend, step number 3, hardly anyone who has said, Cliff, I want to create a podcast and I want to learn how to build a business around it so I can leave my day job. They don't have this at all. They have no clue what this is. Matter of fact, the number of people who says, Cliff, here's this situation. I've been podcasting for the last 3 years and I'm finally fed up. I've got to do something. I need to start over from scratch. I'm going to take your podcasting A to Z course. But here's the situation. I haven't figured out what is the right business model. I haven't figured out the right thing. I've invested probably a couple hundred hours creating courses and I still make almost nothing. Somewhere between, I sometimes can bring in about $75 each month. I think the most I've ever brought in was $1,300 one month. So I just haven't figured this out. And I'm like, okay, tell me who your target audience is. And that's the language I was using back in the day. Tell me who your ideal customer is. Oh, my ideal customer are high school students who are studying for the ACT. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the target audience is these people who seemingly have limited resources. And they may have a problem that they don't feel super confident about their ability to pass this test. So, but are they willing to pay to have that solved, and at what cost? And it says it's something that you can solve. Okay, great. That's wonderful. You want to solve it? Yes, that's wonderful. Well, who's the people with the money? Well, actually, your target audience is not those teenagers in many cases. It's their parents. How can you target them? And this just one off the wall example of what I'm talking about. But the number of people out there who want to create a profitable business to provide for their entire family, but yet they don't have any clue of an audience out there, an ideal customer of people who have the financial resources necessary to pay for a problem that they are aware that they have, and that they're just looking for a solution. They're willing to part with those financial resources to finally get rid of this problem, to overcome this obstacle, to get what it is, their desired outcome. They have this desire. They're just looking for the person that can solve it, who wants to solve it, and that they feel could solve it. This is so important. Step number 3, determining your ideal customer. By the way, in the workshop, I talk about the more specific you are with your clients and the language that they use and the pains and the way that they describe the pain that they experience because of their problems, it absolutely transforms your ability to reach your ideal client. One of the examples I gave in my workshop the last time I taught it was about Gary Tackix, who's a business management consultant. And he comes in and helps businesses manage their businesses better. Sounds amazing, right? How many of you are like, oh my gosh, Cliff, that's exactly what I need. Can you tell me a little bit more about Gary Tackix? By the way, that's Takacs, by the way, is how you spell Gary's last name. Probably none of you perked up when I said who Gary Tackix is. That's because that's not how Gary Tackix describes himself. Here's the bio on Gary Tackix's website from a couple years ago. Gary Tackix is one of the most recognized dental practice management consultants in dentistry today. His knowledge of the business of dentistry has helped thousands of dentists develop a thriving practice in any economy. With Gary as your coach, you can develop your ideal practice that provides you with the economic success that you deserve. Imagine the joy of practicing dentistry because you want to, not because you have to. That is a man who knows his target audience, who understands their pains, who understands and has heard the language used to describe what their experience is. That's step number 3. Identify that target audience. All right, step number 4. You want to then do what Gary did. Learn about your ideal customer's problems. You can use conversations, you can do surveys, you can go out and interview people. And the greatest question you could ever ask is, what is the single greatest frustration or struggle that you face when it comes to fill in the blank? Whatever it is that you are a specialist in. So for me, back in my podcast Answer Man days, I might have asked people, what is the single greatest struggle you face when it comes to launching your podcast? Or what is the single greatest struggle that you face when it comes to creating content for your podcast? Or what is the single greatest struggle you face when it comes to building an online business? Do you see where I'm coming from? All right. By the way, the second best question you could ask after you get the answer to that question: what other struggles do you face when it comes to fill in the blank? And then just keep building a bullet point list of all the things and ask them to describe, what do you mean by that? And listen to the language. I encourage you to record these conversations and have them transcribed word for word and study and learn their language. All right. We're going to continue on. Step number 5. Now you have determined how much money you must make. You have determined what you want your business to provide you as far as benefits. You've determined about how many hours you're willing to invest each week. You have a good idea of who your exact ideal client is. You have a good feeling for where you add value to people's lives, what it is that you have to offer, what you bring to the table. You've figured out all of these different things. Now it comes to step number 5, products and services. Determine exactly what type of products and or services that you will offer to your target audience. Now, in my Building an Online Business workshop, I did an entire session on all of the different online business consultant / coach / thought leader, different things that we could go into. But given the fact that I want to wrap this up in about 5 minutes and we're only step 5 out of 11, I'm going to move on. All right, so step number 6, now you want to create your value proposition statement. And this can be as simple as you basically want to tell people who you are, what your title is, who you help, and how you help them, and what transformation they can expect. Now, there's a little bit more of a fill-in-the-blank kind of ad lib thing that I give in the actual course and things of that nature. By the way, if you're interested, I'm willing to give you free access to this course, the entire Building an Online Business course, if you stick around to the rest at the end of this episode to hear my offer. All right, but anyway, I'm going to give you my value proposition statement that I wrote on the slide during this workshop. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. I'm a business strategist and mindset coach. I mentor coaches, consultants, and thought leaders through the transition from their unfulfilling day job to their own profitable online business so that they can finally live the life of their dreams and do the work they feel most called to do in this world. Now, again, I said there's an entire session where I basically give you the formula, you kind of fill in the blank. This isn't necessarily something that you're going to use as a piece of content on your website, although you could. This is more along the lines of, do you have a clear understanding of what value you add so that when somebody asks you at an event, hey, what do you do for a living? Could you communicate this off the top of your head without it being memorized and robotic, but very natural sounding? It's like, oh my gosh, tell me more. That's exactly what I've been looking for. That you're speaking my language. Or if that's not them, they're like, oh my gosh, I have somebody that I know that needs to connect with you. Can I introduce you to so-and-so? Anyway, that's step number 6, create your value proposition statement. Step number 7, you then want to validate and or modify your business model. By the way, this is step number 7. This is before we get to step 8, which, little spoiler alert, create content. Kind of already gave that out at the beginning here. But anyway, step number 7, validate that your target audience is responding to your message of who you are and the value that you bring. And I would not create a website. I would not create a podcast episode or a podcast. I would not create all this email marketing. I would not go out and create social media channels. I wouldn't even design a logo until I could go out and find somebody just through personal connection or referral or whatever, just to validate that somebody out there who is my target audience, when they hear what I have to offer to solve the problem that I know that they have, and then they are willing to give me money. Make it your goal. Step number 7, make it your goal to get your first paid customers now. By the way, your product or service is not validated until someone has already paid you money to solve the problem that your product or service is designed to solve. And I might even go so far and be as bold as to say at full price. Because you really want to make sure that you're actually solving this problem. Get some people to pay you. Do what it is that you've promised to do. Get their feedback. Did that work for them? Did they experience the transformation? Did they get the value? Are they willing to give you a testimonial? Are they willing to refer you to others? Do this a handful of times, and then you've validated that you actually have an audience that actually has money, that has a problem that they're aware of, and they are willing to pay to have it solved. They now understand that you actually have the ability to solve it, and it's clear that you enjoy solving it. Wow, these people are super satisfied. Guess what? Go create some content. Build your website. Create your logo. Start your email list up. Launch a YouTube channel, launch a podcast, start writing your blog posts, start creating your social media channels. That's step 8. Do you understand why creating all of this step 8 content stuff doesn't make sense if you haven't done the first 7 steps? Not that you actually have to follow my exact 7 steps, but these are the 7 steps that I've been teaching over the years. And it has been incredibly successful for those who have gone through this exact sequence. Not that it's the only sequence, but it's the one that I've taught, and I've seen it work over and over again. Not to mention the fact I've actually used it myself, this entire 11-step process, multiple times. All right, step number 9. Next, you want to attract your ideal customer at scale. This is where you go out there and you do all of the different things to get your name out into the world. In the course or the workshop that I did that is now a course called Building an Online Business, I have an entire session on the topic of how to grow your audience. And I actually prefer to say how to attract your ideal customer, because it's not about having thousands or tens of thousands of people who are subscribed to your podcast or your email newsletter. The question is can you have, let's just say, 1,000 people on your email list and write an email and put out an offer to an ideal client that you've attracted there, just 1,000 people? Could you write one email and all of a sudden over the course of 3 or 4 emails making the same offer over and over again, can you turn that into $50,000 or $60,000 in revenue in your business? And I think you can if you followed this sequence and you have the right products and services, and it's in alignment with the pricing that gets you to your goal that you stated in step number 1. All right. And then once you have attracted your ideal customers, step 10, market your products and services. This is where you're going to really invest in building some new skill sets if you're not into sales and marketing. The worst thing you could possibly say to yourself and or anyone else that you know, I'm a horrible salesperson. I suck at sales. Don't say those words. Instead, commit to yourself. I want to learn and grow in the skill set of marketing and sales. In fact, if you actually can't say those words with integrity, meaning it's like, no, there's a part of me that says I kind of like the fact that I suck at sales and that I hate sales because I have such an icky feeling about sales, then hire a coach, because I want to tell you, sales is essential for life on this planet. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are already an incredible salesperson. There are so many natural things you do all day, every day. Even if it's only for yourself, you are an incredible salesperson. It is a natural thing that we learn and develop. It's the only way we can survive and only way we can thrive in this world. And I'm not talking about making a living and earning commissions and selling things and having people sign on the dotted lines and all that other stuff. But I will tell you that what you have already learned how to do is just... It's a simple reframing of understanding of what you've done successfully in the past, that if you could just understand how easy sales and marketing can be, and if you break up with some limiting beliefs about your fears about how you'll be perceived and some other things, and if you could learn to let go of judgment of others and let go of judgment of yourself, you will find that you will finally free yourself to speak openly and candidly about the value that you have to offer to others. And that's going to be essential and necessary. So step number 10, you're going to invest in learning the skill of marketing and selling your products and services. And once you've actually figured that out and you've got a good process, then it's time to go and test out some new products and services. That's step number 11. By the way, that was the quickest I've ever delivered that content. I hope that you took some notes. Check out the show notes below. I do want to let you know that I have taught this Building an Online Business workshop here in my home studio. My wife and I built this house in 2014. We built a studio classroom workshop space for in-person workshops. And we've had people here all the way up to, I think we had 14 people in one session. Each of them paid $2,000 a piece. Actually, one of them paid $7,500 for an extra day of one-on-one. But anyway, $2,000 per person, traveled all the way here to Northern Kentucky to take this workshop, Building an Online Business, for $2,000 for a day and a half workshop. on the last time I delivered that, there were only 2 people attending that workshop. And the reason why is because that was the year we were actually doing Free the Dream conference. We had actually taken the step up from doing in-person workshops for 12 to 14 people at a time, and we were testing out, can we do live conferences? And we did Free the Dream Conference 2018, Free the Dream Conference 2019. You could go see freethedreamconference.com, the website, to see what all happened there. But anyway, that last time we did not market it, but there was still a date on the calendar. And so we had 2 people who came. I had 2 people who came. And I said, hey, if you guys want a refund, I'm happy to give you a refund, but it's going to be the 2 of you. Would you be okay if you decide that you don't want a refund, you still want to come do this workshop? It's just going to be the 3 of us. And I'm going to throw a camera in the back of the room, and I'm going to record everything with a lapel wireless mic on me so that I can actually record this and potentially put it into a course or a class. And they said, absolutely. That has been recorded. It's been in my Kajabi account for the last several years. I have since sold this for as much as $2,000. I've sold it for $1,500. I've even sold it for $1,000. However, I will tell you this. I am willing to provide you free access to this course, the whole thing, if you commit to me that I am genuinely interested in full-time self-employment or building an online business as a secondary stream of income. And you've got to tell me, what has been your experience? What have you done so far? All you need to do is email me. If you look in the show notes at the very bottom, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com is written in there. Email me. Tell me your story about your desire to build your online business. Now, maybe you've already started it and you're struggling, and you've been struggling for years. Maybe you're one of those people who are about ready to throw in the towel. And all of a sudden, this podcast episode has brought some enlightenment to maybe some of the struggles that you might have faced. Maybe there were some missing ingredients in there. If you would email me and tell me your entrepreneurial journey, aspirations, and dreams, I'm willing to give you access to this course for free. Now, I will tell you this. I am going to put you into my email newsletter, and I will send you emails about the things that I've got going on here, the things that I share. But I would like to give this to you for free. And if you would like that, all you have to do is email me. I also want to let you guys know that I have a new program called the Next Level Coaching Program for early stage and aspiring entrepreneurs. It meets every single week, and I am there to answer all of your questions. The one thing I would ask is that if you're going to be a part of this, you kind of have to go through this 11-step formula as a foundational thing before you come into the Next Level Coaching Program. So basically, what I've been doing is people come in and onboard into my Next Level Coaching Program for early stage and aspiring entrepreneurs. I require that they watch this 11-step formula, the full session. And if they want to, they can go into the breakout sessions that go into more further detail. But if they watch that and then come in, then they have the foundation, and I can answer questions every week. And that's exactly what I do for 90 minutes once a week, every Tuesday afternoon. I am there serving all of these aspiring and early stage entrepreneurs. I also would be interested if you go through and sign up for this course, and I give you access to it for free. And if you watch all of the material in the course, and I actually have a method for me to see how much progress you've made through, I would then invite you to be my guest for 2 sessions of the Next Level Coaching Program. If you get the free access to the course, and then afterwards, if you email me and say, hey, Cliff, I've gone through the course, thank you so much for that. I would love to be your guest for 2 weeks with no strings attached, no expectation, no obligation to become a paid member of your coaching program. But I would love to see what it's like, and I've got a couple of questions now that I've gone through the course. And I would love to serve you for free with no expectations, no obligation at all that you become a paid member. Now, I will say this. I think you're going to find that the information and insight from the course is incredibly valuable. If you go through it, I think you're going to come away with lots of notes that's going to help you get much further, much faster than I did in my own entrepreneurial journey. And I can say that with confidence because I've watched it happen a lot for other people. But also, I will say this, when you come into this next level coaching program, you'll be shocked at not only the answers you get to your own questions, but when you hear the questions of these other early stage and aspiring entrepreneurs, the things that they're asking and considering that you hadn't thought of yourself will give you so much inspiration about what's possible and clarity about exactly where to start and where to stay focused and what some of the common pitfalls are. You're going to learn so much. And you may just want to take me up on an offer after you go through your second week as my guest in the next level coaching program, assuming you requested access to the Building an Online Business Workshop course, and assuming you watched it and requested access to be a guest for free for 2 weeks. At the end of your 2 weeks as my guest in the next level coaching program, I'm going to make you a compelling offer to join the next level coaching program as a paid client. But here's the thing. You either will know immediately that this is what you want to do, or you'll be up in the air about it. And if you're not 100%, I just want you to tell me no, because there is no strings attached and I have zero expectation and there is no obligation that you will pay me a single penny for anything ever. That's my offer to you. What do you think? So now today, I've given you an overview of the 11-step formula for how to build an online business. I'm offering you full access to a $2,000 course for free. And if you go through all of the material, all of the sessions in that course, and then ask me for 2 free sessions, that's 3 hours of group coaching with me, I will give that to you for free with no strings attached, with zero expectation, no obligation that you become a paid client. To kick it all off, you do have to do one thing. Send me an email today, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and then tell me in one paragraph about your entrepreneurial journey, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you're an early stage entrepreneur. And by early stage, I'm talking about anyone who's not consistently making at least $10,000 a month every single month ongoing. If that's you, email me today, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. And until next time, I encourage you to never quit your daydream.
Mindset and